What's up, guys? If you saw my last video, you know I quit a reliable engineering job while finishing my first ADU. I got to do some cool stuff at work, but I couldn't keep being a cog in the wheel. When that first home started to take shape, I felt something shift. Leaving the corporate world and getting back to my roots has been life-changing. It's brought a kind of value I never could have imagined while sitting at a desk, daydreaming about escape. I don't know exactly where this path leads, but I've got a permit in hand, and this week, it gets loud. Hit me with a like and subscribe, and let's get into episode 2. All right, good morning, guys. Pete and I are gonna be big saw cats today. We got our tools ready here. My buddy Dustin loaned me his steel TS240 concrete saw. It's a 2-stroke, uses 50-to-1. So we got a little fuel can for that guy. And then there's also a rolling cart for it too. We're gonna try to use this thing because it actually has a water tank that we can feed the blade and wet cut. I've used one of these before on asphalt, and using water is definitely the way to go. You want to keep the blade cool. So hopefully we can keep the water under control. It doesn't get too wild here. And then we got this big Bosch jackhammer. Pete's gonna get to know that thing pretty well today. So yeah, all right. Well, I'll talk a little bit about what we did and how we got here. So first off, what we wanted to do was get the wall layout, and now we're gonna probably do a self-leveler because we have this curb here that I showed you guys, and it goes to 0 at the back of the garage, but it goes to about 2 inches at the front. So we're gonna lose all our chalk lines before we go to build walls, because anything we do now, we gotta level it out before we actually build the walls. So we'll lose the chalk lines. So our goal with the chalk lines was to get the walls laid out that have plumbing inside the walls. So we wanted to do the minimum amount of work as far as doing our layout. So you can see we got some major runs, like of some kind of more longer wall runs done. And we squared it up with the house and kind of checked the house for square, and it's pretty dang good. So we're pretty happy with that. And then we use kind of those longer runs of walls. You can kind of see here, there's a big long wall that goes in between these two posts. And you know, we designed it that way, we meaning me and the architect, because this is a structural beam and I don't want to move that thing, and that's engineering you got to pay for and all that stuff. So we were able to make a design that captured these posts inside the wall. So anyways, what I'm getting at is we got the minimum amount of chalk lines snapped out so that we could get our path for our rough plumbing in here. So I think now talk a little bit about that. My intuition with my limited experience, I've done this rough plumbing once before and I designed it on the other one, but my kind of intuition was to take the saw cut from one toilet to the other and just like line up the verticals on the toilet. Well, I had John over yesterday and he was like, yeah, you could do that, but you kind of end up making more work for yourself. And he was like, I really like to have straight lines when I'm working off of a saw cut. And so what we did was we kind of centered our cut on this wet wall here. So this is the back of the bathroom wall. The toilet kind of comes off 12 inches like you can see. And so I've got my saw cut kind of centered on that wall. Plenty of room to mess with our fixtures and fittings and dig. And you know, it's gonna get deep towards the back, so We want to have plenty of room to work in there. And then basically we have 190-degree, and then that comes to this other bathroom back here. And in here we got the toilet and the shower box. So I kind of just decided like, hey, let's just cut this whole section out. And again, you can see this is the wall. This is our chalk lines coming through here. And so that, you know, it's basically like we have a channel centered on that, but we also had to pop out for the shower and the toilet. So I just decided to take the line out around. And then our main comes through here, and this is where it goes out of the building. And one of the silver linings on this project is we've got quite a bit of slope on the driveway here. The sewer lateral does not go out to the street, thank God. It's in the back. So we're gonna go through the foundation. We're gonna have to core drill right there. But the cool thing, look at all this junk out here, is the clean out's right here. And then basically under the stairs right here is where we're going. We're going through the foundation. So works out pretty good. That's a pretty small sewer lateral, maybe 8 feet or something. And then we'll have one more 45 out there to connect into the lateral. But that's pretty much it. Oh, another thing, I started marking it out with Sharpie. There were a few challenges. The number one, I had snapped out some of these cut lines in chalk, knowing that I would go over them with Sharpie or something, but the Sharpie didn't want to adhere because it was chalky. So I decided, I got the tape. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut on the inside of the tape line. So I have it really nice and straight on the inside, and that's where our cut's gonna be. One last thing, this is a closet right here. And again, you can see we're going over our 2x6 wall. It's gonna have the drain for a washer dryer and the vent and everything coming up. So our channel goes into the wall, and then it comes out and ends right here. Why does it end right there? Well, right behind Pete in that wall, there is a drain coming from the upstairs. And we counted the fixture units. There's only a sink and a dishwasher. And we're moving the washer dryer to the kitchen in this upstairs unit. So basically my plumber said, hey, you don't need to double count the sink, the kitchen sink and the washer dryer. So that's just 2 fixture units, and then the washing machine is 2. So that's 4. And then a washer dryer down here, that's another 2. So it's a total of 6 fixture units on a 2-inch pipe, and you can have 8. So anyways, this guy drops down and then goes through the slab, and then we're gonna intercept it right here. So kind of nice, just one little channel for that guy. So yeah, we're gonna get after it, guys. Anything else, Pete?
Yeah, not really, that's good.
Okay. Comprehensive, okay. So Dustin was so nice to let us use this concrete saw, and this thing's just incredible. I was super surprised with how lightweight it is. It's a 2-stroke, so it's just super light. But anyways, I wanted to do something nice for him, so I grabbed a new fuel filter and a spark plug. So I was just gonna do this fuel filter. I asked the guy at the store, and he said just grab something you can fish this little fuel line out with, and the fuel filter will be connected to the end. So we should be able to pop it off. Looks fine, but more to place it. Sweet. Let's get that guy back in there. It's got a good connection. this thing's ready to set sail, or it should be anyways. Put it on start, and then just give her hell. Guess we put it there. So the throttle was a little bit of a learning curve, but once I got that figured out, I just had to dial in the depth of the blade, and that wasn't too hard. And after that, it was pretty much just off to the races. The blue tape was a huge win. Wasn't sure how it was going to hold up with the water, but it worked out awesome. And the black Sharpie actually really held up and was easy to see when I was cutting in the spots that I did that. Now, once we got to the back, we were pretty much pros. Had the depth all dialed in on the saw and the throttle. And one thing we did change is we're using a little too much water. I think that the flow on the tank, even though it wasn't very high of a flow rate, it was enough to keep the blade cool. The blade's pretty robust, and cleaning up all that water was kind of burdensome. Okay, so our last little trick that we had up our sleeve was doing the jackhammer and the concrete saw at the same time, like dueling banjos. So Pete was running the jackhammer, and we basically just manually unloaded all this concrete. I was hoping that the concrete would come out in bigger pieces, but we actually had mesh in the slab instead of rebar, and the original plans showed rebar in the slab, so the mesh was a little easier to cut with the saw, but there was more of it. So I think ultimately it made it a little harder to remove the concrete in large pieces, but we worked through it, and yeah, got it all done. Had about a I don't know, I would say about a half a yard of broken up concrete. And I didn't have the dump trailer, so of course I was trying to get the material off to the recycler at the end of the day, and had to manually unload about a half yard of chipped up concrete out of the back of my truck in 15 minutes. So that wasn't super fun. But we got it done in one day, which is all that matters. And I felt like it went really well. All right, guys. So the saw cutting is all done. Turned out pretty nice, I think. Yeah, like I said, the blue tape was a huge win. It stayed on throughout the whole cutting process, and once we were jackhammering and pulling concrete out, it started to come up, but that wasn't really a concern at that point. Yeah, just like most foundations, it's got some sand under the concrete. The sand seems to go down pretty far. We're digging down to see how far it goes, and usually it's like 4 or 6 inches. It seems like it could be more than that, but yeah, you can see some of the mesh, the wire mesh that was in there. It was like a 6-inch grid mesh, so that made us have to bust up the concrete a lot smaller. Here's the cutout for the washer dryer. So the drain's gonna come down in the wall right here, and then we'll have a 2-inch drain that's gonna connect in over here, which meets up with our drain, comes down in the wall right here. So yeah, pretty straightforward. That's the cutout for the toilet. And then we'll have a vertical clean out. So basically there'll be a panel on the wall inside the office, which is right here, and you open the panel, and then there'll be a clean out that you can access to clean out the main underneath there. So yeah, I think we did a pretty good job. Got it all done in one day. Next up, we're gonna be trenching out and installing the rough plumbing. So that should be fun. I want to give you guys like some information on how I do that and how I think about that, and then I can also give you the calculation for the fixture units if you guys want to see that. Other than that, some of the next items up on the agenda is getting rid of this water heater. We're obviously going to have to relocate the washer dryer. That's for the upstairs unit. So we'll be doing that. But I want to get the new water heaters installed as soon as possible. And those are going on the outside of the house on the other side of the window. So I got to frame in this window. Hoping to do that this week. And then my stucco guy is going to come out, do the stucco on that. And then we'll be able to install these guys. They'll be right next to each other. They're the same unit. It's a Rinnai RX 160, so they're 160K BTU. And I did all the line sizing and stuff for the gas on that as well. So it's another thing I can talk about. But yeah. One other thing is there's a landing for the stairs, and some of the 2x12s extended out into the landing, and they were a little bit rotted out on the top. So we're replacing that deck, and Pete's been working on that a little bit. And then we're gonna build the stairs that go down for the entrance to the upstairs unit. So if you guys wanna see that, let me know. I can make some videos about that as well. But other than that, yeah, we're just gonna move on to the next step and start working on the rough plumbing as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. All right, that's it for episode 2. We've got chalk lines on the ground, trenches in the slab, and one jackhammer that's probably due for therapy. If you're into building, design, or just watching a garage slowly stop being a garage, hit that like button and maybe even subscribe. This is my second ADU, and I want to show you everything I know. Maybe even learn from my mistakes a time or two. Episode 3 is already in the works, and trust me, It does not get quieter from here. See you guys in the next one.